Welcome to Ask an Innovator. I am super fired up. We got an amazing guest. We got some real, tangible content for you. Here it goes. Over the last 100 years, 90% of jobs have been replaced by machines or technology. We humans are therefore heavily dependent on computer health to create any amount of wealth. As a child of the 70s and 80s, I was told an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Diet, exercise, prevention, personal development are all key elements on this show. What would you think if you went to your doctor or psychologist after exhaustive testing, they sat you down for the news, and this is your diagnosis? I love you, Code Red, Melissa, Saucer, Zeus, Conflicker, Stuxnet, My Doom, Crypto Locker, Flashback. You have a virus. Alan Auld is here to talk about the antivirus. Alan, how would you describe your career today? What's your specialty? What kind of problems do you get people out of?
Well, my title is as a network consultant, and so that leaves it wide open to talk about many different things. But cybersecurity and viruses has really expanded over the years, and I was trying to think, why is it now that it's proliferated so much? But I think it's because 20 years ago, computers were very expensive. Not everybody had one.
Right.
Now they're cheap enough, but now we have computers in our back pockets. Our smartphones, do all that. And so, and plus, there's so many different internet-related items in our homes now. I looked at the amount of devices. Okay, so I'm a nerd, but I have quite a few.
You're a nerd. Well, qualified.
Qualified.
Nerds are cool.
I have a piece of paper that actually says that I am.
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's want to get that out of the way.
But yeah, there's so many different devices now that we have in our homes, and those are all just as vulnerable now. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So now I rhymed off a bunch. I Googled top trending viruses, and did you recognize any of those? I love you, Code Red, Saucer, My Doom, Crypto Locker.
Yeah, Crypto Locker's a bad one.
Was a bad one?
yeah, don't get that one.
No.
And, there's preventative ways to not get these. It used to be you buy a good antivirus program and you're safe.
Yeah.
It doesn't cut it anymore.
It doesn't cut it anymore.
No.
So we're close in age-ish, within probably a few years, maybe 10 years. We'll see.
Sure.
There's
no proof.
You remember, we won't flash our IDs. Now, you remember Y2K, just like I do.
Yeah.
We're going to party like it's 1999. The Prince song was written, and we thought the world was going to shut down.
Well, people in the IT world did not.
No. Okay.
We had a good laugh over that, and I knew people that were going to fill their bathtub with water, and they cleared out the stores of peas and beans and stuff. But we knew it wasn't going to happen. Yeah. But there was a problem for a lot of older computers that weren't going to work properly after that. But the communication of that whole rollout didn't really go out. The banks were fine. They knew they were. It's not as. I mean, the media came out with that, I think, in September of '99.
Yeah.
And so made this great frenzy. But banks have been working on that for years to fix it.
Amazing. All right. So we're going to dive deep into this show, into cybersecurity, kind of all things crypto, all things technology. I'm really excited about it. Before we go there, tell me a little bit about yourself. You went to Lakehead. You have worked in Thunder Bay, in the community of Thunder Bay, extensively in broadcasting, business degree.
See, now you're trying to get my age. I can see how you're doing this.
You're
going backwards. You're going to see how long.
You never know with the flow, right? You never know with that flow.
Well, let's go back to the 80s. I started in the 80s, actually. I went to Confederation College and took the broadcasting program. And part of when you graduate, you do a fair bit of work here at Shaw. Now, this is aging me a bit. It wasn't here in this studio. It was on an old one on Van Norman Street. But I used to volunteer for city council meetings, and I used to direct. Where I was a cameraman first, and then directed. And I remember, throwing those cables out the window at City Hall and doing these meetings that went till 2 a.m. My highlight was when they decided to build the community auditorium, and Walter Assif was the mayor, and it was a fiery show.
I heard he was a fiery mayor.
Oh, he was, and I don't know if they still have some old tapes of him, but boy, I remember being behind the camera and having a good laugh at that. So,
I bet that's amazing.
Yeah.
And are you? proud of Thunder Bay? Are you proud of where we've come from, where we're going?
Sure. You know, so as I moved along in broadcasting, I worked in radio and television here in Thunder Bay, and then from that, I gained some experience with video. And with my wife and I, we formed a video company 10 years ago and started shooting commercial video. But 5 years ago, I picked up a drone, and that has been a passion of mine for the past 5 years. I started out, so I do it commercially, and I've taken photographs for businesses. But I also made a few community videos, and one I did 2 years ago called Thunder Bay 4 Seasons. I was just blown away. I released it New Year's Day. 200,000 people have viewed that video in a short period of time.
Isn't that amazing? I've seen it. It's remarkable.
And so that shows my love of the city. I didn't get paid for that video. I did that because I loved it. It took a year to do that, flying around various places.
Nice.
But what I really enjoyed was seeing the comments from people, and a lot of them from expats from Thunder Bay who have been away for 20 years and missed the city, and they said, oh, this really made me homesick. And so that drove me to do it again.
I've been on a plane quite a bit lately, and the other morning we took off. It was around 10 o'clock, and it was a crisp, beautiful winter day, and wow, was it ever spectacular. Looking out the window and seeing the backdrop of Thunder Bay, the landscape of Thunder Bay. Your drone now and your business that you have, your side business, I guess, as it is, filming from an aerial perspective is a totally different, I mean, literally a bird's eye view.
Sure, and you get a different perspective when you're in an airplane, you get a different perspective when you're in a helicopter. The drones can only go so high legally, but they get to areas where planes don't get to, and to see a city in a different way, and every time I launch it, it's just, oh, I love this, this is great.
Isn't that neat? Yeah. So speaking of drones, and it's kind of a good segue into some of the tech stuff that we're going to talk a little bit about today. I've heard that Jeff Bezos, the famous owner of Amazon, will be delivering all of his packages by drone in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Do you think so? Is this going to happen?
Well, technically, I'm sure it can. I think it's neat. But I mean, what's stopping you from taking your neighbor's package? I see all the shooting down the package, or all that sort of fun stuff. Taking it there.
Drone snipers.
But
that looks like a diamond ring in that box. Let's shoot it down.
No, I don't know if I can see that in the city, but definitely in the residential areas, I can see that happening. That would, especially areas where delivery services is not that great. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, modern logistics are alive and well.
Sure.
One of the questions I love to ask in the first segment of this show is simply Thunder Bay, glass half empty or glass half full? Are we a negative vibe or are we a positive vibe?
We're both, and so I think I grew up in that generation on the negative side. I remember in high school, everyone saying if you want to do something, you have to leave Thunder Bay, and a lot of my peers did, and
that's right.
And I stuck around, and it was a really negative thing. But if you look back, to the '80s when I was leaving high school, and I didn't say what year. That was the thing that there wasn't a technology hub here in the city. There wasn't much of a service industry. There was, you worked at the mill or you worked at the elevators back then, and that was, or the service industries around that. But now we have a med school, we have the law school, we have so many things going for us. So
hospital, state of the art, cancer research.
Right, and so all these things that require support services like IT.
Yes.
Have now created opportunities, whereas before, we would have had to have left Thunder Bay. So I think it's half full now. It used to be half empty, but I think that has switched.
Gentrification. I mean, people are actually moving to Thunder Bay now because of the infrastructure that you just described.
Right.
People are actually moving to Thunder Bay and settling here. And I've been spending a lot of time out of Thunder Bay. I've been kind of 15 days on, 15 days off.
Sure.
And wow, when I come back here, what a great place to live. It's not as cold as people think. I was just in Winnipeg last week, and we have this lake, this untapped resource. We're going to be right back. Alan Auld is going to take us on an adventure about cybersecurity, the realities of your passwords and your personal life. It's coming up next. Stay with us. Alan Auld. Welcome back to Ask an Innovator. The internet is full of life hacks, TED Talks, there's Apple Podcasts, life hacks are great. Tony Robbins is full of life hacks, Ed Milet, Grant Cardone. There's life hacks and there's hacking. This is something that we're gonna talk a little bit about. in the news today, I mean, we can't get away from Donald Trump, our leader to the south. Some would say the Russians, through hacking, put him in power. Is this even a possibility?
Yeah, I don't know so much as they put him in power, but they definitely did some hacking.
They definitely did some hacking.
Sure, and I think it's well documented that that they definitely got in, and whether that was enough to influence him to, I'm not going to get into that politics part, but I mean that's a whole different show.
That's a whole different show.
Show about that. But the fact that they did get into to an entity that should have some protection, I think is a wake-up call for all of us.
Right. So hacking has affected obviously the U.S. electoral system, which you'd assume would have some pretty secure firewalls, malware, antivirus. That's a big entity. They got hacked.
Sure.
What are small businesses doing? What is the local business doing today to avoid getting hacked?
Well, there's two parts. If I go back to the big business just for a moment, other companies like Adobe, I think it was Home Depot, there's so many large corporations that you hear that they've had a breach of some sort. And yet they have huge IT teams, and you think, why can't they, but the problem is now is, like I said before, antivirus doesn't cut it anymore. You need to change the culture in the ways that people operate. So when you talk about small business, and years ago when we talked about hackers, when I used to I used to teach at Lakehead, and when I talked to a class there, I'd say, they're going after the big guys. They're not worrying about the small guys. And they were 20 years ago, but that has shifted. And why? Because small businesses are easier pickings. They're easier to get into now. There's so many different ways. And if people can take away anything from today, I'm going to be talking about a lot of technical things, but change your password. And make many passwords. Don't just have one, and we'll get to that.
Okay, so passwords are a key. Off camera, actually, we were talking on the phone, was yesterday, the day before, you were telling me a story specifically about passwords, and when Home Depot, it was on the news, it was maybe a couple years ago, Home Depot got hacked, and so just take us through the steps as to how these people are getting our passwords.
Sure. I'm not sure how they hacked into the big company, and it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to slag Home Depot, but there's many different companies. So company A gets hacked, and they have 20,000 customers that you've signed up for their newsletter. Maybe you're paying for your products through there, but you sent up a username and password. How many times have you used that same username and password at Home Depot, at your bank, at something else that you buy? Because let's face it, we have so many different accounts. Passwords are hard to remember. So let's use the same one. Okay? And life is good until that company gets hacked. Now, so the company fixes their patch and they're good, but somebody has a database of 20,000 usernames and passwords. Now what they're trying to do is they're trying to go into as many different accounts as possible and see if they can get in. Maybe they can get into your bank. And they can do that before you even know it. So even though they're not, your system at home is secure, or the business you work for may be secure, but that password that you have, and let's say you work at company X in Thunder Bay, you're using that same username and password. Now you're making that company vulnerable because if they have something online, they can get in through that. And there's a thing called the dark web. And that's something that we put on a seminar that explains a little bit about the dark dark web.
I'm very curious about the dark web.
Well, it's something to be concerned about. Because we've bought into this database that shows domains. So whether it be Alan at xyz.com, and look at the accounts that have been hacked. And we've taken that to some businesses and showed them, saying, do these accounts exist? Yeah. This is what we think the passwords are according to the dark web. And the jaw drops. That's my password, that's my password. Well, guess what? It's out there.
Is the dark web a hacker's playground? Is this where they conglomerate and hang out and conspire? Yeah. How do you get on the dark web?
Well,
what is the dark web?
Well, think about getting free software.
Okay.
There's a reason why the software is free. No, there's no free lunch out there. There's not somebody wants, I want to give Cole the biggest software package and I want to give it to you for free. No. They want your information, and so there's a trade-off with that. And so every time you go in and you're looking at some freeware package that's on a site that, if you go to the site and it says, get a VPN so they don't trace your IP. Well, guess what? They're trying to get more information out of you, so be careful.
Yeah, getting back to the passwords, it's interesting. I've seen a couple local friends of mine who own businesses here in Thunder Bay they're kind of techie type companies. They all encourage all of their staff to have a kind of like a password locker of a piece of software. Would you recommend something like that? Is that one of the key remedies for this issue?
A password. There's many different ones out there, and that's some of the things we talk about in the seminar that we do. Because let's face it, you want to make a cryptic password. You don't want to put it in your dog's name. And or something that's easy to guess. And you think about it. Okay, so we just talked about age. I have an idea of what your age is. You may have your birthday on Facebook.
Right.
Okay, what's the first thing the banks ask you? What's your name? Okay, what's your date of birth? Okay, well, I've got 2 things already. Maybe find out where you live. All of a sudden, I can get into your account with some simple questions, right? And so if you have a different password than the one I just hacked, then I'm not going to get in. But how do you remember them? A password locker is one piece of software that records them all, and that's definitely a good thing to get.
Yeah, it's amazing. Would you say the average person in their lifetime today, moving forward, what are the odds of the average person getting hacked?
A lot better, or a lot higher than it was 5 years ago.
Is hacking on the upswing? Is there a movement towards hacking?
Sure.
Is the as an kind of a subculture, as an industry, dare I say? I mean, is hacking on the rise?
It is, and it's not, and that's just a generic term. There's breaches, and there's all different types of. Well, let's use hacking for the blanket. But you think about it too, a lot of businesses won't admit it. We don't have the statistics that Stats Canada has, and what's really out there could be 2 different things. Let's say your business gets hacked. Do you want to tell everybody that you did?
And would I know it?
Would you? Well, you might. Oh, well, there's been some businesses that have come to us that have been hacked, and they've had all their data encrypted, and meaning that they can't access it.
Right.
And they get a friendly email from this hacker saying, "Hey, we've encrypted your data, and the way to get it back is give us half a Bitcoin or $16,000."
Right.
And there's been some businesses in town that have had to pay it because they haven't had a way to restore the data.
So they've had to pay in Bitcoin, and for those that don't know, do you want to just touch on Bitcoin a little bit, just so people understand a bit?
Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It's I can't remember how long ago it started out as. It's a non-traceable currency. All right, so it was evolved when it was like the anti-bank that people decided to get, so that it's not manipulated by markets. It's that's a whole other thing as well. How do you get a Bitcoin? You get an account and you put money into it. It's a big deal. Bitcoin, the value of one coin went up to I think $20,000 a little bit, and I think it's down to like 10,000 now, and it fluctuates in price. But when this company says here, send a Bitcoin to this address, it's not traceable.
Right.
And that's what hackers love it because you pay and you'll never find them.
So a local company that we know got hacked.
Yes.
The hacker locked them down, their entire network, couldn't access any of their files. And this was a local insurance company. So these are files that are of sensitive nature. And the company had to pay Bitcoin, $15,000 in Bitcoin to have their, and this actually happened right here.
It actually happened here. Now, it was just one server of theirs, so they were lucky, and it was nothing that compromised their customers' data. So
no, of course not.
And so that was lucky. Had they done that, then they would have had to come out and be public about it. But the thing is, when a company gets breached like that, then they look at your integrity, and it's challenging. It really is.
Yeah. That's remarkable stuff and totally challenging. Alan's kind of taking me aback here a little bit. I feel I want to go out and buy some antivirus software really quick. We're going to be right back. We're going to get into some really neat stuff about some business and some more inspirational stuff and see how Alan develops himself personally. We'll be right back with Ask An Innovator. Welcome back to Ask an Innovator. Alan Auld is educating. Knowledge is power. We are being empowered right now. I have a few hacker cyber quotes here. Paul Graham wrote a book, Hackers and Painters, Ideas from the Computer Age. He said, there are few sources of energy so powerful as a procrastinating college student. Are the average hackers young people?
I don't know. I mean, they don't usually come out and get their pictures put out, so it's hard to say. I would say so, but you know, a lot of them aren't in Canada; they're overseas, and you know, you look at the source of some of the hacks; they come from all over the world.
There was I was doing a little bit of research before our interview, and I came up with I Googled celebrity hackers. I was blown away. I didn't recognize any of their names, but I guess in the dark web they're somewhat famous. I guess it's kind of a big deal now. Tell me the difference between malware and antivirus, or is it one and the same thing?
A little bit. I mean, a virus is the old school. You get a file sent to you, you open it up, and it does something right away. Malware is a bit different. It's something that may slow your computer down, change the way it operates. So they've kind of blended a little bit together over the years. Both change your computer, do something that either slows you down, messes you up. Some of them actually will start using your computer as a server and to send its stuff out to other computers, right? So that's it. Good virus programs stop that. But the things we were talking about in the previous segment, virus programs aren't going to stop that. You know, you have to change the culture. You have to educate your staff to change the password and make it cryptic, make it difficult. Be careful for phishing, which I haven't talked about. Receiving an email that looks like from Royal Bank or looks like from Amazon, and take a look at where that email came from, and don't click on it right away. If it looks suspicious, it probably is. That's usually the source of what's causing these breaches today, and it all comes within. We offer security appliances that can stop all that, but nothing is 100%.
We're going to switch directions a little bit philosophical. Now, the idea of, and I started out by saying, kind of quoting a stat that over the last 100 years, 90% of jobs have been replaced by technology or machines. Right. I've backed that up, I've researched that, it's actually very true. I'll give you a quick example, and I'd love to hear your comments. And the philosophy is that are machines really kind of taking over? And if so, are hackers, are computers going to be kind of becoming their own hackers, if you will, smart hackers, not human hackers? And I'd like to get your thoughts on humanization. We do have just a few more minutes, but I want to kind of get into this. Being a tech guy, and I want to see how tech has been disrupted and maybe where humans fit in the whole thing. So let's use the railroad, for example. In 1947, the entire US workforce was 44 million strong. 1.5 of the 44 million worked for the railroad. The railroad did 55 billion miles of freight. Fast forward 2014, instead of 1.5 million working at the railroad, 187,000, with an increase of miles under freight to 1.7 trillion miles, an increase of 187%. The technology and the machines have replaced the jobs.
Sure.
Where do we stand today? As a human, where do humans fit into computers?
Fixing them.
Fixing them. So if you can't
programming them,
and
maintaining them, you know, there's three areas. There's somebody, those computers that replace those jobs. Somebody had to make them.
Yeah.
Somebody had to write the software to do that, and that is ongoing.
Yeah.
The software that I used 20 years ago doesn't work today.
Yeah.
And the software that we're going to use 10 years from now doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
And so there's a market for that. There's a market for the people like myself that tell the businesses, you should get this software. There's a market for other people that I also do is saying, be careful with this software, and also you need to protect this software. So it's a whole paradigm shift of jobs. So there's maybe the less blue collar job for the railroad, but there's more white collar jobs for people in the support area.
Right. I'm hearing you say it's important for young people or anyone to become tech savvy.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad, he's 85 years old, and he has an iPhone 6.
All right.
I'm, you know, over the moon proud of him that he uses that phone, and he calls me for tech support. And I have an uncle in California who does the same thing, and I think that's great that generation is embracing the technology. But even as I get older and see that there's more and more coming out, it's hard to keep up with it all.
Sure it is.
Sometimes, can there be too much technology? I think so. I think there's some gadgets that come out and saying, is it really going to make my life better? Is it going to make my life better at the expense of not talking to you?
Right.
And that, I think, is...
And hiding behind this?
And hiding behind that. I think
Yeah.
that's a fear. And I know I'm
Yeah.
sounding like my parents'
No,
generation,
yeah.
but I think that's really a big fear. You know, when somebody would rather text you than pick
Yeah.
up the phone, I think there's something wrong with our society.
And I have a whole thought process, and I speak about it sometimes, about disruption in tech. If you look at Apple, Google, and Amazon accounting for roughly an eighth of the entire U.S. economy,
Right.
$3 trillion each, these companies, the disruption in tech is kind of over. The fallout has been brick and mortar, and now what we're seeing is another wave of disruption coming through, and personally I believe it's humanization. I believe that human beings putting the phones down and talking again will be the way to kind of disrupt the technology.
I hope so. I mean,
we'll see.
I mean, things like Skype and FaceTime with Apple has definitely bridged a huge gap. We talk to our mother-in-law in London, England, on a regular basis, whereas before we didn't. And I think that's great. That,
Zoom is also an effective app for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think those things are really cool. But we also have to be leery and careful of some of the other distractors that are there, of being on this device when instead of interacting or going out and playing boot hockey, and instead sitting inside and doing that. That has to do something for people's personality growth.
Absolutely, emotions especially.
Yeah.
I mean, total. And I love that. And I want to squeeze one last question in. I got about a minute left for you.
Okay.
It's my all-time favorite question. It's the Ask an Innovator question. What advice do you have for the would-be entrepreneur, the creative type, the go-getter but stuck on their couch, afraid to summon the courage to go and get at it? What advice do you have for that person?
Don't be afraid of it. Computers for me wasn't my first path. It was broadcasting. It was to do this.
You're very natural
right?
here.
And so, to think, 25 years ago that I'd be doing this, because I remember actually the computers that were at the TV station when I was there, and I hated them. And I thought, but I've embraced them now, and it's getting easier and easier to learn. So much of technology is now very user friendly, and I would say if it's something that you have a passion into, just jump in and do it.
If you have a passion, jump in and do it. I love it. Okay, there you have it. Alan Auld, I'm empowered. I feel I want to go out there and just create something. I feel like I want to go out there and innovate something. Here's what I wrote for Alan at the very end. The common cold or an antivirus. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent job. Thanks for tuning in to Ask an Innovator.